Recently at an event, Alex Karp was screeched at by a hater, someone who believes that to her core, that Alex Karp is an evil man, only seeking to gain money and power off the backs of innocent civilians in the Middle East. Now, while the Israel-Palestine conflict is nothing new, there's definitely been a lot of attention on Palantir recently, because they're the ones who are building the sophisticated software used by the Western world in these military situations. And Alex Karp handles this situation respectfully, of course, which also brings up some insights into his way of thinking. So sit back, relax, and enjoy.
That a few people get wealthy.
Get wealthy off of killing Palestinians. With Palantir kills Palestinians with their AI and technology.
Oh.
They're killing my family in Palestine.
Yeah. And you know.
What kind of person are you? How do you sleep at night?
Well, if you
Shame on you.
do, you want to hear my answer?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. So I think the primary cause of death to Palestinians. Okay. Do you want to hear the answer, or do you want to yell? Well, you don't want to hear an answer? So the primary source of death in Palestine is the fact that Hamas has realized that there are millions and millions of useful idiots that will.
Using that excuse. This is why you don't get a platform to speak. Because you are killing my people and you're justifying it because of Hamas or anyone else.
Can we get security up there?
Okay. One of the most.
How dare you?
Okay.
How dare you? Your AI and your technology from Palantir kills Palestinians.
Mostly terrorists. That's true.
No, it's not. If you say mostly, so it's okay to kill.
Okay.
innocent others.
Look, if your argument was so strong, wouldn't you let me talk? It's so strong. It's so strong. It's so strong. Your argument is okay. That's. Thank you for.
Anyone else who supports this technology and AI to kill Palestinians.
If your argument was so strong, you'd let me talk. If your argument was. By the way, just as an ipso facto thing in my book, if you have an argument, thank you.
Ma'am, I think we've heard you. I think we've heard you.
Shame on all of you.
Okay.
For supporting a genocide. Shame on all of you. You are sick. You support a genocide. When the forces of brown people.
I think you came to the wrong event.
Okay. It's well, no, the yeah. How about like okay. If anything,
Okay, have a great day.
First of all, I really support free speech. So the part where you get up and say what you think, I'm 100% on your side. Like, you want to come in here and accuse us of doing bad things, regurgitate where I'm a sick, bad person who's doing it for power, and I'm enjoying watching people suffer. Okay, great. I 100% support her right to say that. But the thing on our side that we have to fight for is we have to fight for a right to discuss and say our side of this or my side of this. And like one of the most important things about the book, which you may not want to read is, you don't need to read is, if your argument is that strong, why will you not let the other side talk? And in there, it's obviously if the argument was as simple, and by the way, the pain of Palestinians is something that everybody, and anyone who dies in war, obviously people care about. The obvious solution to war is to have the West having the strongest, most precise, deadly weapons possible so that we can minimize unnecessary innocent deaths. And by the way, the primary way you minimize these deaths is you're so strong no one attacks you. And that's how you actually do it. Now, there are many sides to this debate. One of the things that's really frustrating in the West is I spent a lot of my life in Germany. I'm kind of pro-German culture, especially where it actually works. You know, we kind of all support something like climate. I think most people support regulated immigration. You have 20% of your society in Germany who are just radical to the point where the ideas make no sense, but they 100% believe and then they end up controlling the policies of the whole society. And the responsibility we have who want pragmatic, real world solutions, like, of course, wars lead to innocent deaths. What do you do to minimize the death? Why did October 7th also include how were there security lapses? You know, these are really important questions. Could it be done better? How would you do it better? What is America's role? Who do we sell to? Under what conditions? Who controls the technology? Does America control the products we produce? At what point, if we're going to have generalized deadly AI, does the government have a responsibility to control who owns it, who runs it, what is it used for? Is there a sense in which you have to be politically and culturally aligned? Can you have a discoursive discussion? These are all completely legitimate topics. But if we who disagree with being shouted at do not stand up and say, you know, fuck it, we got to fight back, at least talk about and force discursive discussion, they will win. It's like they take it to an extreme where it's obviously absurd. And by the way, and where it's very much linked to, you know, what happened in the Mali, I believe she believes I'm evil. I believe she's an unwitting product of an evil force, Hamas. That she unwittingly is part of their strategy, that she is a product. And the most important thing, arguably, in the book, or what Palantir, or what you could learn, is do not become a product of an ideology that sounds sensible. Because the minute you become a product of that ideology, you'll be weaponized. And like the consumer internet version is we become more divided and less smart and less happy. And the political version of it is you won't let anyone provide a different opinion because, of course, that person has to be evil. And the opinion that is actually probably less productized is more nuanced. And then, quite frankly, because you also probably have to make implicitly adopt an ethical hierarchy. So the hierarchy of my book and our company is the West is superior. It's simply superior because we can have this discussion. She can yell, I can respond, and we have to fight to make sure that breaks down. The thing that scares people about AI is scary, which is that it can be abused. It will give great powers, much more power over it than they otherwise would have without it. And it will lead to a hierarchical disparity, which will lead to how the world is governed, which is why we have to win this in America. Because if, in fact, another great power gets this technology and has the ability to more or less precisely target, more efficiently target, more accurately use actual devices that currently work, which is like hardware, software, hybrid devices, they will define the world order. And that world order is going to look like the person doesn't get to speak or they only get to speak. And that's what I do not want. And that actually is what we have to fight for.
And Alex, if I could just add something. In the freedom of this country, you're attacking the U.S. government. People vote with their feet. People vote with their feet. In the freedom of this country, these protesters are using our democracy to attack our system of government, and we support their freedom of expression. But it's important to remember that the freedoms they enjoy here, they would never be able to cause this circus in Gaza. And so it's important to keep that in mind. So shifting gears a little bit.
I haven't had this much fun in a long time. Maybe I should come back tomorrow. This is like I'm actually a reformed academic, and I spent most of my life, there are many Palantirians here, actively hiding my dyslexia. It's probably the only thing I've ever hidden. Like, I probably should have hidden more of my personal life, or definitely should have hidden my political views. I should have, I got lots of people to quit Palantir. I didn't want to quit by telling them things that were seen insane or offending them, which I apologize for. But, the dinner table basically was, obviously it wasn't just shouting, but like discursive. And there usually was an aunt or an uncle who was occasionally over who would pull something like this, but it was usually from the far left. It's like, but the means of production are so stacked against the working class. How can you have a view?
So in this room, we have a lot of builders who want to build great products and who want to build great companies. Obviously, Palantir is now, I lose track of the market cap, $220 billion market cap, depending on the day of the week. What are some of the organizational lessons that you think have made Palantir a great company? And what advice do you have for policymakers to make our government culture more efficient and effective?
I think every real company that succeeds at a scale, like basically, I think there's a binary thing in the history of companies, like, can you get to $1 billion in revenue or not? And it's an important metric because parts of a system can go well and can get you pretty far. But if you can cross the $1 billion mark, then something has really gone well. And it's not just something falling together. To get to that kind of mark, you have to have a founding team where people are doing something where they have a primordial level talent, I mean, inborn talent that they're willing to dedicate every ounce of their life to, probably for 5 years or more. And I believe to do that, you have to have a belief structure on top of it. The pain of dealing with highly talented people or the most talented person you've ever met is going to be very, very high. And I don't know how you do that without some belief. Now, the belief doesn't have to be, I would prefer it to be Western values and the superior of the West defined like I see it, but it doesn't have to be that. But I would say, and as absurd as that kind of sounds, look at the counterfactual. Almost every great company in the world is built by builders in this country. And why is that? Again, take the German example. Germany has people that are equally talented, equally smart. They believe much smarter, which they tell me whenever I go there. And yet in this country, and why is that? One of the reasons is we have, our version of religious freedom is you get to define your own church, synagogue, mosque, or cult. And then you get to set largely the rules of your own religious community. And that seems like a banality, but it really only exists at scale in this country. So as you know, in Europe, if you move to Germany or Switzerland, you're Jewish, Christian, or Muslim, and then it's the community standards defines whether you're a member. And in this country, you get to decide and you get to set, and we have a belief culture. And if you combine that with enough technical people and pragmatism, you can have a great company. But the part that people leave off the balance sheet when they talk about builder is the belief side. And I think there was a flash in the pan where there were companies where the people were just completely narcissistic. And there is a narcissism to believing you're going to do something, a productive narcissism, I'd like to believe, of believing you're going to do something really big and great, even though the odds are stacked against you. That's necessary. But believing there is something larger than the numbers, that is more important than the numbers, that gets you through the pain of failure and, in my view, the greatest task ever, which is working with someone who annoys the crap out of you every day for 5 years and deep into your pores annoys you. It requires belief. And then I think especially now, you really obviously have to have something that is actually differentiated and actually deep and hard to do. Now, deep and hard, it can be a combination of tech depth and an ability to sell into a difficult market, like breaking into the US government to get them to buy something that they couldn't measure, couldn't see, couldn't feel, couldn't test software was really hard. And, I think it's gotten easier, but it's still hard. Businesses have basically two components: deep tech and some way of getting someone to buy it. And you need to do both. And that's why it's very hard, because most people who can do the deep tech probably are building the wrong product or can't get the product out of the first or the second or the 10th or the billionth out of the jar. And so you have to think very seriously about both of those in what you're building and how you go to market. And then you want to be in America, honestly. There are people from all over the world here, and I want the West to succeed. If you want to know how good you are at tech, you do it here. It's not just as people say it's a scale thing, a capital thing. No, this is more of a métier or an art form than a science, and all the artists are here. So you got to come here. If your government doesn't want you to be here, come here. This is where the action is. You can then build it and then go abroad or build it, co-build it. But it's like, if you want to be in the NFL, you come to America. You want to be in tech, you come to America. You want to do lots of, like, I wanted to be a philosopher till I realized it was ridiculous. There are lots of places you could go to be a ridiculous philosopher. Germany is a great place for that. And you'll have a great social life because people appreciate that. But, so this is where the action is. And it's really important not to ignore these banalities because they will determine your fate. And then, it's really important to have dialogue. You should have a low tolerance for stupidity. I mean, in public, when you're talking to people, you really want to steel man. It's a contradiction, but you want to steel man everything you encounter. How could this stupid thing actually be true is a really important question. But if the stupid thing is actually stupid, and if it comes from a world-class wealthy person, it's still stupid. It's just stupid, but you can't just write off things as like, this is obvious. You have to spend a lot of time figuring out, is something that otherwise looks dumb actually smart? And that's hard to figure out. But, that it's not a prestige thing. A lot of smart people and accomplished people say things that used to be true. And like, one of the reasons we succeeded at Palantir, like, we sued the government. I've told the story 1,000 times, so some of you have heard it. But I sat here and the most famous people sat there and they said, if you sue the government, everyone will know you're an asshole. And I'm like, I don't really view myself as an asshole. And so we sued the government. And they were right that it was really stupid. And I was right that if we didn't change the way procurement was done, this nation would not be strong and good and we would fail. And there are a lot of people here in this room who, have great companies because of their innovation and their hard work and their dedication to specialized talent. And also because we sued the US government and now there's something like meritocracy. So you're still shooting uphill, but shooting uphill and shooting like to Mount Everest while they're dropping grenades on you is a different story.
So Alex, in closing, these two protesters was actually my secret way of creating the perfect segue to talk about your assessment of America's policy in Israel post October 7th. And I wanted to ask you, where does Palantir, as a philosopher, you opine a lot on cultural issues, and Palantir took out a full page ad in the New York Times post October 7th to say Palantir stands with Israel. Where do you source that moral conviction? And can you explain to us a little bit why that's so important to you?
Well, I think at the end of the day, moral conviction is just conviction. And for better or worse, we have it at Palantir, and lots of people don't agree with our convictions. I do think having moral conviction is one of the main it's too simple to say you have clarity of conviction and therefore you're going to succeed. That's not true. But I do think the inverse is also much harder than people think. Without any kind of conviction, I think it'd be very hard to stick. Well, we had 17 years of where everyone was short Palantir. Everyone. And we stuck with it. And, and then also the kind of highly meritocratic environment comes with pain. And so you need conviction to get that to work. And flat hierarchy means everyone's telling you're stupid all the time. So you need conviction to get that to work. The West has to survive. I think we have a way of ordering our life that is very special and is very underappreciated, often by our elite institutions, especially. And if we lose it, we will lose everything that makes everything work in this world. I don't know exactly where the source of my personal convictions come, or it's more just a belief structure, but I'm very proud we have them. And I think as importantly, every time we reach a new milestone, so $1 billion, in each segment of our company, or one of the more important attributes of it is you win arguments in this country and industry by having conviction that leads to big tendies, which is a retail investment way of saying money. And so if you want to convince the world that you're right about something and you're a builder here, one of the best ways to do it is to build a great business, because everyone will listen. The stuff I'm saying now is arguably the same stuff I've been saying for many, many years. And it wasn't that worth, it's like, so I think you win arguments by basically building a castle of success and letting people look at it. And then they basically assume that the way you see the world. And by the way, again, this is kind of in the book, but one of the most important interactions I had was a very poor graduate student. I was so poor. I had this family in this rural village that gave me a coat. In Frankfurt, no one knew a fascist during the war. In this village, people were like, yeah, I was basically a Nazi. And one of the most important things I learned from them was the fact that America and American ways of thinking made them healthier and wealthier and happier, that changed how they saw the world much more than anything else. And if you want to change how people organize, if you want to create a discursive environment, if you want to widen the aperture of access to things that work, educational reform, including meritocratic institutions across our society, including universities, you've got to show it in action. And then people will judge you by the fruits you bear. And that will have an enormous impact. One of the reasons I think a lot of us still fight, both current Palantirians, ex-Palantirians, customers, partners, investors, fight for us or defend us, or at least tolerate things they may not exactly agree with, is because they know we're fighting to get something to actually work. And that is actually how you shift the dialogue. And if you want to steel man, why are they yelling and not talking? What are they building? One of my favorite things, I have most of my family is left of center. And one of my favorite things is, and I view myself as a classic liberal. My first question is always, show me an institution you respect that's actually working. And that shuts things up very quickly. And I say, I'll give you an institution you don't agree with a lot, my company, and it's actually working. Why don't you try to figure out how you can take some meritocracy and then put it into your worldview? Because that might work. How about working with people who disagree with you? That might work. How about taking something and building something where the inputs are much less than the output, which is the primary determinative of something, if something is working. And then what you will get is you essentially split the ocean. One side will yell at you and tell you, you can't say this, you can't think this, you can't do this. And the other side, people who equally do not agree with me, will be like, yeah, that's a real challenge. And it's those people that don't agree with you, that are open for a system that actually works, like a system that any system in a differentiated, complicated society below which we cannot regress without destroying all of our lives is going to have certain attributes. Talented people are going to succeed more. Hardworking people are going to see more. There's going to be wealth inequality. You're going to have to deal with ways to test for merit. There may not be the simple ways we know. And you're going to have to produce something where the inputs are less than the outputs. And we have to get, and the way you convince people of this is you do something that's successful and you challenge them to have their worldview produce something that is better. And usually what you'll find is half the people will say, yeah, well, you're kind of some form of bigot or you're evil. And the other half will be like, yeah, okay. And then that's how you organize things. And that's how you actually make a lot of change.